Hello, automating success show followers. Today I have Ed Macha with me, and Ed is into industrial automation, so he fits right in with what we do. I'm going to go ahead and let Ed introduce himself and talk about his what he does and his background for you guys, the audience. Go ahead, Ed.
Well, it's a pleasure meeting you, Joe, and thanks for the opportunity to be on your show. Like you mentioned, my name is Ed. I am the founder of Reliable Controls Corporation. We are really focused on the industrial automation side of things. We do a lot of work in the mining sector and oil and gas. Been doing this for, gosh, almost 25 years. So we founded this company in 1999, my company. We were based out of Salt Lake City, Utah. And we have projects really all over the Americas, all the way from Patagonia up to Alaska that we've done work with, and also we've done work in England, and also Turkey and South Korea, etc. In fact, currently I am in Argentina as we speak. I'm staying away from the snow in Salt Lake, but I'm headed back there in a couple of weeks. My background is electrical. I'm an electrical engineer, with an emphasis in, process controls, which is automation, industrial automation, and also with power distribution. So that's my technical background, and my company is really focused on automating industrial facilities.
Okay, so you said you got started in 1999. So, what was the spark for you to start this business? What need did you see for the industry, and what was your inspiration to get started?
I think this from very early on. My dad is also an electrical engineer, and he really instilled in us that sense of engineering, especially and process controls. He was very involved, and still is, in that type of automation system. So way before even I graduated from college or high school, when I was in elementary, I was exposed to distributed control systems, and feedback logics or feedback process controls and all of that. So it was kind of nature, it was already built in, and learning from my dad. And then I went to school, studied process controls or control theory, and then power distribution. And my first job out of university was with a company called Precision Systems as a control systems engineer. And I started doing programming, programmable logic controllers, working with HMIs, human machine interfaces. Did a lot of work in different facilities, from steel industry, food and beverage, and like zirconium, stuff like that. So that really gave me a good insight into, process controls as applied, not just a theory, but how it applies to industry. And it really fascinated, it just blew my mind how much, you start developing this logic and the systems and all of that, tying it all together and then bringing it all to life. And, that's when, you start looking at different disciplines coming together. You start understanding chemical engineering, what those guys are doing, and or biology and different. And then I got involved after that, and with a company called Caverner, working internationally, doing plant commissioning, and primarily the commissioning aspect. What that really boils down is you check and verify and validate everything that's been constructed on a major project in the world, major project. And you verify, test, prove, and then you energize, and then you get the systems up and running. And that includes a lot of process control systems that got to be integrated and put together. And then you start looking at introducing water and then, process material and bringing the whole facility to life. So that tied in very well, the whole automation and then the commissioning processes that go along with it. And for the first time, seeing a mining facility or mineral processing facility come to life, it's just, that's nothing more fun than that, for a nerd like me. So tying in, the automation and then the commissioning process, I looked at it as something very unique, to the point where I saw a niche, a market, in something that very few companies really specialized on, and I that's when Reliable Controls was formed. In fact, the name Reliable Controls was mostly focused on automation. That was the main focus. And we expanded to include plant commissioning services. And then there's a lot more that we do now, but that's how I got started. That was the driving force, is in the magic behind automating things. And also my love for entrepreneurship, which I'm sure we can talk about it, but that's really to me, it still fascinates me, especially as new technology comes in, and you got to stay on the curve. It's not boring. That's for sure.
No, it's constant. It's constantly changing, and
advancing. Yeah, exactly, Joe. And advancing, every year there's new technologies, new systems, methodologies, and you got to stay on your game all the time.
Yeah. Well, and that's our job, right? To bring the best to our customers. So one of the things I was going to ask is, okay, so Ed, you kind of stole some of my questions that I already had pre-written down, because you talked about your first couple of jobs right out of school, and we'll come back to the school in a second. But
sure.
What was the timeline? So you had those first two jobs, and what I want to kind of dissect a little bit is, because you and I, we have similar background. I worked for someone else for myself for a little while also, and in that time span, there were things I was recognizing that I felt like I could maybe do better myself, just because I was seeing like what the customer was asking for but not being delivered. But I just want to see the timeline from when you got out of school to when you started your own business, and B, what you took from the jobs you had and then brought them into Reliable Controls.
Oh, by
Does that
all
make
means.
sense?
So,
Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I graduated college in 1994.
Okay.
So 1994, and I started Reliable Controls in 1999. It's about a 5-year period.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, I had done a lot of work, during high school in mining facilities, stuff like that, but let's not go into. Let's just stick with. So what I learned about my first two jobs were, actually very, very positive. One, with the first company I worked with right out of college, they gave me such liberty and freedom to be creative, and also have faith in me. And they really put a lot of, they gave me the ability of the training, and also the ability to develop myself, my career, and feel comfortable. And when you first write your first program, and you're looking at, okay, this is going to move a conveyor belt, and you're going to turn this furnace on, and you're going to get this motors running and all of that. Yeah, you see it, and then all of a sudden you go to the field, you program it, and you go, oh man, this is really working. I'm pressing this button on this HMI, and there's this huge motor turning outside the control room, and just that feeling is just overwhelming, and it's powerful. So having that ability to program and lead a group of programmers or controls engineers we did a zirconium facility, a steel mill, salt plant, different facilities, and in a very short period of time, in 2.5 years. They also sent me to projects in Mexico, which it helped that I spoke Spanish. That they did, and so I was their ambassador, I guess, to all these projects. So it gave me a lot of sense of authority, in a sense, even in a very short time, that I knew what I was talking about. I felt comfortable about, very confident about being able to program a system, an automated system, that was quite complex. That was that experience with Precision Systems Engineering. Had a great boss and a great team. Then an opportunity came out with the company that I worked after, which is Bowen Engineering, which later became Caverner Bowen, and they were mostly focused on commissioning big mining or big facilities. And that's where I learned I stepped away from the process controls and I looked at, that's where my power distribution know-how came in my schooling. And where I was working in energizing, getting equipment ready to energize, there were 220 kV volts, kilovolts, 300 megawatt substations, just big, and being working in testing all the switch gear and equipment and the SCADA systems associated with that, or the power relays or coordination studies across, 300 miles. All of that came together, and I'm like, wow, this is pretty neat. Now I'm looking at the power distribution system and getting those things up and running, working with big vendors like Siemens on their big, 20,000 horsepower motors, learning from them, the big technology makers like Siemens, ABB, etc. And then working internationally. So I got a chance to work with companies like Fluor, Bechtel, big engineering outfits, and see how they do things. And that was a very humbling experience, and I learned a lot. How construction is just amazing. How these they built really cities in the middle of the Andes, the high Andes, or remote places, and there's so much to it. So that gave me that knowledge of, hey, this is commissioning, and not just electrical and automation. Then I started looking at, well, I got to get these pumps running, this big water pumps and dynamics that came in. So I'm like, hey, I can apply some dynamics and actually get charge up a 36-inch pipeline and a couple of 100 miles, and it's not an easy task. So you start looking at pump curves and all of that. So it's kind of everything's coming together, and then you start looking at the process, and then you start understanding, okay, now I know what those metallurgical people are doing. And you see how it all ties in, all the electricity, the power that needs to have you need to energize and run all the equipment. And then the process controls, which all these instruments that are measuring us, there's a purpose for all that. And when it comes to the process, well, there's a reason the pH needs to be at this level, conductivity and heat and pressure and flows. And there's a chemical reaction going somewhere, or you're separating minerals, etc. And then all of a sudden from this rocks, you're getting this, minerals, actually metals. So it's amazing. I've been blessed, I have to say, Joe. It's something like that, and tying the automation that I love, and there's now this newfound love for getting things up and running, and getting my hands dirty, and understanding from the power distribution to mechanical equipment, conveyor belts, and delving into the process side of things. It just fascinated me, and tying those together is, I saw an opportunity, said, we could build a company, and I worked with my dad. I mean, he's got me working since I was 12 years old and stuff like this. So I'm like, Dad, what do you think of this? He goes, let's do it. So, it was kind of like I had my hero working alongside with me.
So you said, so a couple things I want to find out. So first I want to say, I don't know if you're aware of this, because I mean, even people that watch the show know that I do outdoor automation. I have a professional landscape company, but I was a union electrician for a while. And one of the most rewarding jobs I remember having, we were working in it, or I was working at an aerosol plant, and they were doing robots that would actually move the tin. And, it's a robotic arm, and it would actually like suction the tin, move the arm, and then move it over. And the whole reason they were doing this was to keep people from getting injured on the tin, on the sharp edges of the metal when they would move the metal plate, right? But I want to add that is the show is called Automating Success. Some people forget that like what someone like Ed does, or what we're doing, is we're taking like redundant tasks that can be automated, whether it's for safety concerns, like, I mean, you're talking about pressurizing pipelines, motor controls, but I don't think people realize how much automation exists in this world, and certain luxuries that we're used to would not exist without automation and industrial control, right? Now, now saying that, I've heard you bring up your dad a couple of times, and that's interesting to me because I used to work with my dad a lot. I started working with my dad when I was 12 years old. But your dad, so was your dad an entrepreneur himself? What was your dad doing in motor control? I mean, does your dad have something to do with your entrepreneurial bug to get going, or
Well, I
like
believe
explain that?
so.
Yeah.
Yeah, he graduated from, same college, New Mexico State University. So he graduated in '68, and he got into the mineral processing industry. So he worked on some of the major projects in Peru and Mexico. As he was on the owner's side, he was working with Southern Peru Copper at the time, was owned by Asarco. Then he went to work with Grupo Mexico, which is now, or Mexicana, which is Grupo Mexico, just big mining companies, and then Kennecott in Utah. That's how we ended up in Utah. So he was always with the owner. He was always the owner, representing the electrical and instrumentation and automation system for these facilities, from construction to commissioning to actual operations. And then he got in, and then he was on the maintenance side, asset management. So he really got the full breadth of of a facility. But he really instilled in us that sense of safety, like you mentioned, and all of that associated. But he did start a small business back in '86 on automation, strictly automation. But we were going to college, so he went back to Kennecott. so I kind of took a little bit of that. So it was it was probably that entrepreneurship that bug was already there, Joe.
Yeah. So, all right. So I mean, obviously it sounds like you could pretty much automate any industrial control that gets thrown at you now. So, how many people are part of Reliable Controls? How big is your team?
There were 65 people. So
65?
yeah, 65 staff. And then, we man up with project employees or contractors or subcontractors, depending on the projects. But that's our staff. It's a relatively small company, but very talented group of people that we have.
Yeah.
We have people, gosh, you're right out of college to people with 30, 40 years of experience, and from different cultures and different backgrounds. We have originally we started getting electrical engineers to do process controls or automation, and now we have chemical, metallurgical. We even have a couple of PhDs in our company that are doing this type of work. So I love getting that opportunity to working with the young folks. And now we're looking at things that you and I probably would have looked at 20, 30 years ago, with machine learning and digital twins, and looking into futuristic stuff like artificial intelligence, stuff like that. So it's a never-ending journey on that automation can bring in. You did bring a point, Joe, that is very important when it comes to automation, and you brought in the safety aspect. And why automate, right? And one of the key things in very heavy industry, whether it's smelters or mills, or we have a lot of equipment that could you're dealing with gases or with chemicals that are harmful for humans, or like you mentioned, this thing with the plates, that you could hurt. There's stripping machines and stuff like that. Automation has done a lot, I believe, to ensure the safety of people and work in those areas, and it continues to do so. And that's one of the things when you automate something. One of the first things you're looking at is the safety of equipment, of people, and then of the equipment itself. Anyways, you got me thinking about that. It's core in the development of any automated system.
Yeah, well, and I'm glad you expanded on it, because when I got started in outdoor automation, and the industry I'm automating is much different than your industry, where somebody listening could be like, oh yeah, definitely that's huge, these mines. Yeah, of course there's unsafe situations, but maybe the people tuning into this show constantly would think that, but there's a lot of people that just go to Walmart or Target or the grocery store and they buy things and they don't understand how automated the world already is. So now they see an automatic teller station and they think it's only for corporate profits, right? But that's really not the case at all. It's usually driven to consumer convenience, right? It moves people through the lines faster. If you don't have a lot, you can check out faster, or even workplace safety, a cashier standing behind a register for 8 or so hours might be hard on their back or whatever. But so it's like, I always just like to bring those things up. Yours is an easy industry to bring it up in. It's more of a reach when you're talking about an automatic teller station. But reality is, um, automation has existed for a long time. It just slowly ends up entering new industries, right? Is kind of the parallel I wanted to draw. And that's why I was excited when I saw you coming on the show, because I know there's some kind of big stuff that I'm sure you've automated that we can talk about. But at the end of the day, doesn't make a difference. Yeah, I mean, I think you brought up 20,000 horsepower electric motors, right? I think you said, I mean, that's almost hard for somebody to fathom how large that motor likely is. Um, but but the cool thing is the logic doesn't really change much, right? I mean, so
Well,
uh,
no, you going into more of a, you know, history of automation. I love that. I mean, you're talking a subject that's amazing. Going back to, well, even before, but let's talk about the first industrial revolution with the steam engine. Well, they started automating back. There was already that was part of the industrial revolution, as automating systems with steam power, a motor or a steam engine, and it helped advance civilization, advance humanity. And I believe it's all about humanity at the end of the day. The second revolution, when we started electrifying the world, and then that was along with the big, the Model T, the big assembly lines. That's the second industrial revolution. That's amazing. That brought people out of poverty and increased the lifespan of people, and really elevated humanity in incredibly. Life expectancy went from 40 years to almost 7 years within the second industrial revolution, which was up to 1969, something like that. And then the third was pretty much when you started using PLCs, which are programmable logic controllers, and that even skyrocketed the growth of our economies and the well-being of humanity in itself. That's, again, a lot of it is driven by automation systems, not just in mining, as I am, my expertise is on, or mineral processing, but in everything: banking system, finance, medicine.
I was just going to say medicine. I mean, think of where our medical industry would be without automation. I mean, even think of a ventilator. It's automatically breathing for you. I mean that's like I said, this is one of the reasons I love doing the show,
Yes.
is because sometimes you just need to bring some things out from the shadows, right? It's people they don't think about how much this plays in. And talking about, even when you said the steam engine and industrial revolution, I always try to tell people, I don't like when people call, like, so my automatic ball collection system, I can collect golf balls on a driving range automatically, right? And people a lot of times are like, oh, I want the robot picker, but I'm always like, no, it's an automatic picker. That robot is not making any decisions without us putting in the logic for it to basically say, when this happens, I'm going to do this. And when I see this, then I'm going to do that. All it is just a flow chart, really, when you break it down, right? It's when, if this, then that, right? So now we do have some AI stuff that's getting kind of crazy and a little pretty complex when you think about it. I had someone on the show, not to take too much off of, I want to learn more about you, but where you could teach his robot something. If you taught his robot how to put away dishes, then if that robot gets taught, my robot automatically knows how to do it. And if you taught your robot how to open up your back door for you, then my robot automatically gets an update. I mean, that's some crazy stuff. I mean, we are really starting to advance now, but I don't know how much you follow that stuff and how much input you
Yeah.
have to it. Expand if you'd like, but
That's right. Yeah, we
so
actually have a team of people working on that stuff. Machine learning and digital twins. We are developing and really investing quite a bit on it. But we can go on futuristic things. But at the end, like you said, when you build a system, you automate is you're relieving. You can give people more freedom. I think you can
yeah,
give, and less harm in the workplace, and you can produce higher quality. You can do more. And there's a misconception, I believe, Joe, that it takes away jobs. I think it creates newer jobs and technology jobs. Somebody does have to build this and automate these systems. A machine doesn't automate them. It takes
yes,
a human
no,
element, intellect.
Ed, and for people on that listen to the show, they might get tired of hearing me say this, but I did okay, so I have two sides of, I have multiple businesses, but one of them is the professional landscaping company, and I put out a post looking for professional landscaper. We let it run on Indeed for a week. We got 9 applicants, only one person showed up to the interview. Okay. Out of 9, and it's all I got in a week. Okay. In the same system, Indeed, I did a post saying I was looking for a automation solutions expert. That's what I call my people at AOS. And I got 39 applicants in one day. All 39 people showed up with a resume. A lot of these people were going to school for environmental engineering. I mean, really uh, great job candidates. And one of the things that I try to explain to people is I I talk to so many people every day where they're like, oh, young people are lazy and young people have no work ethic. And I'm always having to tell them, no, 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 no. So I'm 44, right? And I'm in a unique time span, I think, where it's like electric typewriters were just coming into play when I was doing my homework, right? So I was typing a research paper on electric typewriter, actually or I was having somebody else type it for me, but that's a whole nother podcast. But the reality is, um, our kids, my daughter brings her MacBook to class every day. And they've had technology with them every day. So if you hand them a shovel, they're saying there has to be a better way. And that's great. That's a great place for us to be, because those minds will carry us into the future because they're used to the
100%.
tech, you know? And it's good for a company like yours because you're going to have great quality candidates coming out of school that you can hire, and then those 40-year-old or 40-year employees in the field, like you brought up, they'll be actually passing down where the industry was and handing off the torch, right? So
That's a very, very powerful point you're hitting there, Joe. One of the things we really work in is bringing, we work with universities. And one thing that amazes me, you bring in a young, out of college kids, I call them kids, they're young professionals.
to
And
us, they're kids, yeah,
yeah,
but yeah.
and they are like sponges, they absorb and they amaze you. And they were brought up with computers are second nature to them. These things are and what they bring into the table is all that experience. And then when you couple with that guys with 40 years of experience, their knowledge in the industry or the process or all of that, you bring that to these young individuals, and man, you have a recipe for success. One of the key things have to create that the career path that to get them passionate about this type of work, and they'll never cease to amaze you. I see it all the time, every day in my company. And when they first come in and then they get 2 years of experience, 3 years, and I mean they're going 100 miles an hour. They're gonna speed right past us, which is what we want.
Correct, absolutely. Well, and so you know, I believe automation and technology it just gives them something to be passionate about. I mean, at the end of the day, uh, if you're not passionate about your career, it feels like a job. I mean, I'm sure it's the same thing for you, Ed. Like, I,
Yeah.
people ask me, well, when are you going to retire? You know, you got to think about retirement. I'm like, I don't want to retire. I love what I'm doing. I work, I could work 7 days a week and it'll just feel like I'm just living. I mean, but it's because I'm passionate about what I do. I love doing this podcast. I love automation. I love my team. That's what it comes down to. I'm passionate about the team of people that I inspire to do what inspires them, you know? Um, and that's what's really cool about automation. So, I don't want to stay on that too long. I feel like I already have put us down that path, but you had said you are functioning in a lot of different locations, and that interests me um, because I think that I'm interested in hearing how you accomplish that. Like how you can travel, and then if you do travel someplace, how long a project lasts for you guys. Like if you send one of your people, uh, what is an average project time from start to finish take for you guys?
Obviously, the answer is going to be it varies, but on an average, it's going to be 6 to 9 months, up to 2 years. That a project where we come in and start doing it, or 6 to 2 years, 6 months to 2 years.
So is most of that done kind of behind the scenes on the front end and in engineering, and then kind of on site just to verify that it all is
Yeah.
working out? Explain how that works.
So so one of the things, for example, on the process control, so there's 4 different services that we offer. So one is the automation. So a company will hire strictly to do the automation, for example, do the programming, the configuration, the factory testing, the configuration, all of that is a package. Okay, this is what we provide to you. And then we have the other service, which is we go in and commission a facility, which a lot of times comes with the automation. Sometimes they say, no, somebody else did the automation, Siemens or Delta, Emerson, or whoever did the automation. We want you to commission the facility. So a lot of times we'll just come in and do the actual commissioning, getting the plant running, from construction completion to operations, get that chunk working, and that's a service in itself. And that's a lot of most of that is in the field. So that's actually in boots on the ground, in different countries. And then there's the other one, which is the actual automation services, which are done in our office in Salt Lake City. And that's where, we do it sometimes we just do that just as a service, or sometimes we couple it with, we'll do your automation, and then we're going to go ahead and not just commission the automation, but commissioning your whole plant.
So do you ever have to, so do you guys ever have a need? Actually, that was 3. You had 4 things you do, right? You're on 3. I don't want to interrupt your 4th. Go ahead. Or
No,
is that it?
that's okay. So that's automation, commissioning, and then we do a lot of optimization or improvements. For example, old facilities that were built 40, 50 years ago, they gotta be modernized. So that's where you install new instrumentation, new equipment controls, and then you put in, the latest process control systems. And a lot of these plants have never been fully automated. So you're taking and improving the process control capabilities. And that's also a market that's, unique. Is you're going in and upgrading or modernizing existing facilities, and taking them to the next, to the current technology. That's another, service. And the other one that we're looking at is the advanced technology, is when you're using, data, advanced data algorithms to look at reliability. We can go into these terms, it's really a lot of data collection and analyzing and, coming up with predictions or projections. And that also goes into the advanced systems such as machine learning and et cetera. I see the industry going that way, but, I'm not sure we want to talk too much about that, but that's another service that we offer. But the main one
Well,
is,
Ed, I want to talk about anything that your company's doing, and I mean, as they say, what is it? Data or information is the new oil. So I mean, it's what you're talking about actually just shows. So I do actually want to talk about it a little bit. It shows how, companies are constantly adapting to the needs of the customer, right? That's what entrepreneurs are constantly doing. It's like automation. It's a feedback loop, right? Like somebody
Right.
needs it, they'll pay you for it. You can have the person give them what they want, and that's the feedback, right? But um, what I was going to ask anyways, and I think this will take us down that road is, um, I feel like the more complex the automation is becoming, even though with machine learning and stuff, some of it's getting sorted out on its own, but it does have more layers of complexity than it used to. I feel like there's a lot of companies that just want someone monitoring it to make sure that it's all functioning the way it was designed. Does your company get into any of that where you're kind of looking at things remotely, or is that part of like that next generation of what you're trying to kick
Yeah,
out?
it's probably part of that next generation, and a lot of it, for example, when it comes to reliability, right, is monitoring and measuring data on equipment, so you can predict failure rates, or when things are going to, or what actions or consequences are causing a failure points. Uh, that's that's a very powerful use for asset management and ensuring your equipment is working properly, and your production as well. So there's a lot of items like that with I mean data. There's so much data that if it's not, you can get convoluted if you don't know what you're looking at. I mean, there's so much information coming in, and you have to know where to look for, how to look, get the outliers in, focus on the right information, make sure it's accurate, and then you can base reports out of that so you can make decisions. And that's a whole aspect of data mining, I guess they call it. It's getting that data that is meaningful, that people can use to make good decisions, and also will give good reports as to how your actual facility is operating, or I give you warnings. Hey, this is something that's out of whack. Let's correct this before you fail. Does that make sense, Joe?
It does. It totally makes sense, and I'm glad you answered it that way, because that's one of the things I wanted to get to. I mean, here why I wanted to ask the question is because I think I think as automation becomes more complex, sometimes it has a tendency, the people that do automate forget that to us it's easy, but to other people it's it's like fear of the unknown. So I think for the industry to keep evolving, um, you have to figure out a way to layer in like a service model to basically, and you already kind of brought it up, to predict, okay, these are in a harsher environment, which means these sensors might fail or whatever. So we're going to monitor that and be there to take care of those, so we can do it proactively instead of reactively, so you don't have a shutdown, or you don't lose time on a line, or you don't lose productivity, because we know the data tells us that component's going to fail in X amount of time, right? So that's what I was trying to get to.
That's something we looked at. We haven't implemented it, but there's definitely an opportunity right there, Joe, to I think especially with well, one of the things we're looking at, and let me just answer your question, working with different clients in centralizing their operations center. Let me explain what that means. So you
Okay.
have a huge facility that, let's say, multiple facilities of call it a value chain of a process. So they have their own control rooms. They all over. They could be, you could have, let's say, a mine in the high Andes and a desalination plant that's pumping the water, a couple 100 miles away. Then you could have, a filter plant, different location, and a smelter, maybe in another. They're physically separated, but they're working towards the same goal. So what you do is bring all of that to a unified center, or one big control room. Let's say in New York City, or LA, and with communications and all of that, you bring all that data coming in, and then you're pretty much able to remotely operate as if you were right there in the facility. So you bring in all this data, and then you have a centralized place where you have people, in an office building in downtown LA, or Sydney or London, wherever the headquarters are, and you monitor and analyze the data from that location, and you can monitor multiple facilities and ensure that they're running properly, and then you can analyze the data coming in, and be able to give feedback to the people on the ground as to what are some of these failure points. Now, one of the things that can be done is all that information could go to, or some of that information could go into, I guess, somebody's office and analyze it, and then give back that information to the facility as to some of the things that might be, recommendations how to operate or improve their issues, or things that might be coming up the pipeline. Because again, there's so much information that being digested that you need people that analyze and understand what they're looking at, and create rules as to how to analyze all this data. So yes, there's definitely with all this data management and data mining, abilities to create new services that meet the client's needs or their needs. One of the things I like to think, part of some of the services that we've developed is, looking at business development in the sense is, it's we're working with humans, and it's a human endeavor, and identifying what the needs and pain points of your clients are, and you got to listen to what they have to say. You got to put yourself in their shoes, and build a partnership. So when they're looking at problems or they need solutions, you work and collaborate with them and build a new solution that then becomes a service that your company can offer, and offer it to other clients as well. I hope that makes sense what I just said.
Yeah, no, it does. I mean, and Ed, I'll apologize in advance, but some people that listen to the show are just entrepreneurs, but they don't deal with some of the stuff you and I deal with. But a parallel I want to draw is that everybody knows is like watching the weather, right? And you're talking about bringing in all this data to one centralized location. At the end of the day, weather is more predictable today than it was in the 60s, because we have computers and we're bringing in data, right? And now with that data, you can start to predict weather. Well, same thing when I hear what you were saying, just to kind of break down, as you take these systems and you tie them all together and you bring all that information into one hubs, one might ask, how does that benefit the end client? Well, it gives predictability. Okay, you can give forecasts to downtime, production, to shipping, logistics, especially since we have a worldwide economy now, where things are getting shipped and sent. If you've got to make sure you have product to be able to ship a product on a certain date. So yeah, I mean, that's all like good stuff. And you're right. I mean, Ed, it is an opportunity. That's one of the things in my business, and it's definitely not as complex as what you guys are doing. I'm absolutely sure of it. But if what I found is, if I can offer in that layer of insurance, basically, if you lose a unit, I'll give you a spare unit. If I can see that I've got a little bit of wheel slippage, the RPM doesn't match in the left motor to the right, I'm just going to replace the left motor because I can tell there's an issue and it's going to cause you a problem. It might work today, but in a month it's not going to. That it's the same thing. Mine is pretty elementary, low end. Yours is definitely probably much more complex, but at the end of the day, it's all parallel. The parallels are drawn.
You bring a good point there with any type of production, whether it's big mining or it's runtime, and equipment availability. The last thing you want is just because of a component, your operation shut down, and it's costing you lots of money. But when you could have this type of predictive systems that are tied into your warehousing, your procurement. So if something's gonna fail, then you start getting that whole workflow of things that make sure that you have your components and your parts and all of that in place
Yeah. Well, and even down to, I mean, when I was still an electrician, um, we worked in a credit card processing terminal, and they don't use one power source. It's redundant systems. They're bringing in power, two different power sources from two
Mhm.
different grids, so that if they lose one, they have a backup grid
Yeah.
before they even start talking about going to generator. But these are, like I said, that's automation. You know, you lose power, boom, it goes, because 7 seconds might cost them millions and millions of
Yeah.
dollars, because
Yeah.
there's no, you can't process the card. So like I said, it, with data, becomes, you could probably take that a next level and say, okay, which I'm just doing this for the guests or for the listener. So, let's say you've got two power sources. Well, power source A seems to fail more than power source B. Well, make power source B your primary power source and let A be the backup now. These are all things information tells you, and then you can just change it in real time, so.
No, definitely. And one of the I like analogy when explaining automation in a very simple terms. It's, uh, you look at the human body. You look at when people talk power distribution, electrical systems. I think of the heart and the blood. That's your power systems. That's your you're electrifying. So it's the same. You're providing the fuel to all your body, right? And
Mhm.
your nerves are your instruments. They sense temperature, heat, and all of that. Your skeleton and all of that, your muscles are your mechanical equipment. And then your brain is your process, your automating system. You're measuring all these things in your head and then reacting to it. If you get hot, you move your hand. If you want to do something, or something heavy, you use more muscle. But if you kind of quit it that way, I think the body's a very amazing system that obviously cannot be quite replicated, but we are an automated system.
So I love analogies, and I love that you actually did that, because I mean, that breaks it down perfectly. And yeah, no, I appreciate that. That's a good analogy, and I'm sure Chris is going to micro quote that. So your analogy, you'll be able to share that. And that's great. So all right, so I want to, looking at our time, time is flying with you on this call, I have to say. So, there's two things I'm going to want to hit. I always like to find out about your family and your background. And I do want to talk about, you know, your move, from Peru to the States, and kind of how that is. But before I get to that, I just want to finish out. So, like, where do you see your company going? Like, I mean, do you have a successor? Do you have any kids in the business? Or, you kind of brought up like some of the future stuff you're looking at with some of the learning capabilities, but I just want to make sure you get a chance to say where you want reliable controls to go.
Yeah, that's a pretty good question. Of course, I'm going to work as long as I can, but I don't want this company to end the day I go. That's not the objective. So the game plan is developing a life cycle for my employees. So I want to pass the torch to this generation, actually, that's coming on board. And I'm developing them, grooming them, giving them as much of my knowledge, and the people that are my generation to them, and give them as much as we can, and they can take off and make it a better song. That's that's the goal. I see this company growing. I think we haven't even scratched the surface as far as the market and what we do. One bit, we're really honing our systems. Even in 25 years, we're honing. We have good methodologies, good systems, and now it's okay. Now is the time when we expand, and that's where I'm at right now in expansion mode. But I want to do it in a good manner, without affecting quality and the reputation of reliable controls. But I don't have children. I have a lot of employees that are young that could be my children, the same age,
Yeah.
But I see them taking over and running with it and making it a better company. But give them the tools, give them as much information, and let them in, keep them motivated, and let them amaze you again.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I mean, it's funny because I feel like all my people are like extended family to me, I mean, they allow me to do all the things I love to do, which is travel. So I kind of want to hear about Peru, that's where you're at right now, you said?
I'm in
Where are you at?
Argentina.
You're in Argentina. So, but you came from Peru, right? Is that,
Yes,
yes.
that's
So, so explain that move to me a little bit, just to kind of round out the show on a lighter note with geographic regions and just different parts of the world. It's kind of cool to me to learn,
by all
or for me
means.
to learn.
My family's from Peru. My whole family, great grandparents, But my parents are from central Peru. I was born in southern Peru because my dad was working at a mine. So I was actually born in a mine site, believe it or not, in the high end. These are 4,000 meters of elevation, because that's where my dad was working at in southern Peru. So I was born in a mine town with the hospital or the clinic in the mine town in southern Peru in Toquepala. So I grew up in a mining community. It was a very nice community. It was to say that I really lived in Peru, that would be kind of a stretch, because I really lived in a country club. Because the golf course, tennis courts, it was it's a mining town, and it had all the perks. So I did that. I was from birth till I was 10 years old. Then my dad moved to Mexico again on another mining facility he was going to work on. So it was northern Mexico again. It was another in the middle of Sonora Desert in north, little high elevation, and man, we enjoyed it. I was camping every weekend. I was in the outdoors. I really enjoyed my teenage years in northern Mexico, and gosh, it was living, like in the, in the woods, and I mean, we would go hiking, camping, and all kinds of stuff, and it was very safe. And so I am very privileged in the way I was brought up. Then coming to the U.S., that was in '82. That was kind of a culture shock. Granted, I had a lot of my friends were U.S. and American. I grew up in a multi cultural environment, but still, it was like, okay, I'm from Spanish. I spoke a little bit of English. Then coming into the U.S. to a border town, actually, Douglas, Arizona, and here I am, and like I am. This is new. This is fun, but it's different, and it took a bit to adapt. But once adapted to the American culture and all that, I love America, and then I went to high school in Douglas, Arizona, and then finished in Utah in Jordan High School. And then I went to college in Las Cruces because that's where my dad had gone to school at. And so, yeah, it was, and after that, I traveled, I've lived in South Korea, I spent time in Indonesia and pretty much South America, Mexico, and worked in Canada. So I really enjoy, to me, traveling and being around different cultures and different people, it's very normal to me. So that's kind of a nutshell where how I moved to it. It was fast. I mean, it was fun. I really
So what
enjoyed
was
it.
probably your favorite place and why? And then your least favorite place that you worked and why? And it doesn't even need to be a bad. It's just, I mean, I know for me, I'll lead. Like for me, I love the water. So anytime as a matter of fact, there it is behind me, so anytime I can work where the ocean is or a lake is, I'm super happy. Then secondly for me would be mountains. But I like to be
Yeah.
visually intrigued. So
No,
you know.
my favorite hangout place to go, my hideout is Aruba, believe it or not. I have a timeshare, and I hit it 3 times a year. I just like going, and I disconnect, put my cell phone away, laptop, nothing. And I just go in the morning, go for a walk in the white beaches and just relax. Just go in for a swim, relax, walk, and just disconnect. That's my little piece of heaven.
So I've
Uh,
never been to Aruba. So now you put it on my radar.
Eagle
It's for
Beach.
sure.
That's yeah. I mean, you're not gonna if you like just to relax and enjoy, and it's just amazing. That's my go-to place, and I like different towns, but that place. I don't know. I've lived in some really crappy mine camps in the world, where you live in this little shack, for weeks on end, and then come back to that place. But I I would I wouldn't have to say the worst, but the most where I had the most culture shock, South Korea. Nobody spoke English very well, and definitely nobody spoke Spanish. And I did not speak Korean, but I had fun. But it was hard. It's a different culture. Working with Koreans is different, you know, environment that you're in, a different culture whatsoever in the workforce. It was a shock, but I love the country, love the food. Again, that was also a shock too. But that's probably, I don't say bad at all. It was fun, but it was probably the most challenging one. But I miss it.
Yeah. Well, see, so I mean, and I'm enjoying the end of the show here with you, Ed, because sometimes, and I don't know if you've gotten this in your career as an entrepreneur, but people are always like, "Oh man, why don't you just saturate one area and just stay there?" But they don't. I enjoy traveling. Like, even as I'm hearing you say this, I'm like, I'm thinking, well, man, I've never been to South Korea. That would be pretty cool. I wonder what it looks like there. And to be able to learn from other people and other cultures, right? It's kind of fun because I mean, life is just I guess an accumulation of where you've been, who you've talked to, who you've networked with, and it sounds like you have gotten to experience a lot of that from what it sounds like.
No, it's wonderful. I worked in Indonesia as another, work with Europeans, work with people from all over the world. Even in some of these mining projects that we do in Canada or here in the United States or South America, you work with people from all over the world, and that's amazing. And you learn so much from interacting and working with people, and you realize that people are the same. We all have fears, we all have hopes, we all have ambition, we all have dreams, and it just makes you understand and appreciate humanity more, and
Yeah,
really
no,
enjoy it.
I've been sitting here smiling because I've been thinking it's going to allow me to tie into your analogy, but we all, every country or state or however you look at it, you have kind of your pride of like your culture, wherever
Yeah.
you live. Americans are proud, Europeans are proud, but the reality is we're all the same piece of AI, or we're all the same piece of like automation.
Yeah.
We all have the same type of blood, the same heart, the same brain, the same nerve endings. um and that's what I find when I travel. At the end of the day, everybody has their triggers. There's some people that can get on a podcast and talk without problems. There's other people that never would, but then they're good at something else. And it's just always really cool to see. Doesn't make a difference where I travel. The groups of people are still kind of the same, the way we kind of herd together.
Oh,
So,
totally.
yeah. So then, y- I usually ask what you want your legacy to be, but I feel like you kind of already said it with what you want to do with the company, right? It seems like you want to build something for your team that you have that you can hand down and keep going. I mean, does that sum it up, or you want to add anything to the
No,
legacy question?
that's pretty much it. Well, there's quite a bit to that. Yeah, I want this company to outlive me and even outlive the people that I'm going to give it to. I just, why not? I think that it's a good thing. It's a good company, and let it, let it flourish.
Yeah.
Uh, Build something. I hope it lasts a long time.
Yeah, no, and like I said, I mean, I think that's when you have something that you're proud of that you've built. um that I guess that's what makes entrepreneurship so amazing, right? Is that if you build it right, if you set the right foundation, there's really no reason for it to end, right? If you enable your team and your people to take ownership and allow their idea to feel like it's their idea. And then that allows more ideas. It just constantly regenerates, right? So
No, definitely. No, I agree 100%. And it's all about humans, human psyche. It's the human experience, man. It's a human experience. That's what we're after anyways. That's what we want to do. Enjoy this journey that we're on, enjoy it and make the best out of it. And a business is a business, and it's a vehicle. I don't see it as a vehicle to, let's say, the only purpose of it is to create wealth or well, or to be, no, it's more of an experience, a vehicle to enjoy a good journey here on earth and make what would it be? Make a good living, enjoy life, and be happy.
well, and make a difference,
Yeah, make a
like
difference. I like that.
do something that moves
Mhm.
one notch forward for all humans to come. That's the way I see it.
Definitely.
So, but
Yeah.
yeah, no, go ahead. So,
What did Steve Jobs said? This is one of the guys that I like is people that are crazy enough they think they can change the world. Usually the ones that can.
well, and listen, I'm a crazy guy because I do think I tell people all the time it is my goal to change the outdoor space, to take people that sit on machines that vibrate all day, that are loud, that are probably ruining their hearing, causing nerve issues because the vibration, causing carpal tunnel issues, and basically inspire people to let that job go. That basically I call it like the glass ceiling, where somebody can't probably achieve more than a few dollars over whatever current minimum wage is, and just say, let it go, take that person, train them to do something more rewarding, and
Yeah.
automate the redundant task. And I do think that automated outdoor solutions, myself and my daughter, and my brother John's in the business. Actually, I have a lot of family in the business, my stepsons, that I tell them all the time, we have the ability to change an industry as it's currently known today and make it a more desirable industry to make a career in. Because a lot of people look at our industry as just a stepping stone, some place to start, but they don't actually, a lot of people don't see it as their final um place. And I think I can really inspire change. It's one of the reasons I do this podcast, is to show people paralleled industries like yours, where there's 65 people making careers. When you say you've got people with 40 years of experience working with you, Ed, that's really, at the end of the day, what I'm after, is to have a lot of people retire under my watch. That's how I'll know I'm doing it right.
And one thing, and I know we don't have a lot of time, but one of the things that maybe other opportunities, one of my passions is tying in sustainability, sustainable development to automation, and there's a big connection that sometimes is missed, and I believe strongly that automation is going to be a key driver to meet those sustainable development goals and also develop sustainable future for humanity. Automation is right in the middle of it, and this connection to it.
Well, listen, we're going to take a couple extra minutes now, and hopefully the listeners stay, in their car, just turn back on when they get in. But you're right. And actually, if you listen, Ed, you'll appreciate it if you listen to the episode that I do with a guy named Dan from AGSA. He's out of California. We actually do a sustainability initiative, and it's one of the things that in my space, and I'm going to let you elaborate how it'll help your space. It it's really hard for us to get electric equipment right now because human beings are used to running gas equipment, right? And gas equipment's got 32 to 35 horsepower gas or diesel engines, and they just hog down as fast as they can go, and it doesn't make a difference. But with electric equipment, there's a little bit of a learning curve or a retraining curve for the people and how they use it. But with automation, um, all of that logic is built into the machine. So it's only moving 2.2 miles an hour, takes a lot less energy, 3,000 RPM blade instead of 18 or 13,000 to 18,000 RPM blade. So you're doing a lot more with a lot less.
Yeah,
Right. And
you
I'm
nailed it.
sure that's what you're going to say also is what you're trying
Yeah,
to do, you know?
yeah, you nailed it. It's you can do a lot more with the use of energy, with the use of water, with the use of, and you're going to make more increased efficiency. So you're getting more of the same with less energy, with less chemicals, with less water usage. You can manage your water use. I mean, there's so much you can do that even if it's a little bit, Joe, if you extend it across an overall industry, it's a lot,
Yeah.
and then you can apply it to agriculture, you can apply it to, oh man, so many areas that really affect, humanity, uh, and make it a tremendous impact, and also maximizing or optimizing the way we do things. So I see that just growing, and every industry using automation, and even the advanced logics, advanced systems. It's going to be it's a field that's it's wide open.
Yeah. Well, and Ed, and I want to say one of the things that I am constantly trying to explain to people is that we have to remember why things have gotten so large. Why now this might not be why you have a 20,000 horsepower electric motor you're controlling, but in general, when you look at in all of our industrial revolutions, you know, things could be smaller when labor was cheaper. And as labor rates have increased, how did industry offset that? Well, bigger stuff, right? Bigger mining equipment, bigger trucks, load more into it, move more, move it faster. But one of the things I always tell people to do a little thought experiment is to say, okay, if if there's not a person that's getting paid per hour to move from point A to point B, then do you really need it to be that big? You don't. Or if you can run 18 to 24 hours a day because it's quieter, you not have to shut down because of noise or whatever, let's say. Okay, now this relates to my industry, probably not to mining, because mining's probably running 24 hours a day. But if you can do it quieter, and do it in smaller pieces, but steady, constantly steady work, you don't need size. And then that's what I like people to think about, because I like to bring that up on the show, because I want people to be inspired to think differently. Like, because we have to know why we are where we are to kind of make automation help us with the sustainability, Ed, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Connect the dots, and then they'll push it to the next level. It's an amazing field. It's an amazing, and it's you're right. A lot of people are not aware of it, and I think once you get in it, it's how far deep can you go in?
Yeah.
It's
Well,
it's
no, absolutely. Well, and I mean, like I said, hopefully, and I'll tell you, and I'll say it so if anybody else is listening to the show, it's like, if you like this content, you've got to share it with people. If you want to see the world of automation move, a tick forward, you have to let other people know about it, so that they're not resistive to it, so they stop pushing back on it and realize it'll help a lot more than it's going to hurt. So
no, definitely, Joe. Definitely.
so
By no means.
well, Ed, if there's anything else you want to add to the sustainability, go ahead and do it. And if not, I think this is a perfect time for me to thank you for being on my show, Automating Success. And like I said, it's time has flown. It's been a great hour and 10 minutes for me. Hopefully it's the same for you.
It has been, and thank you so much, Joe, and thanks for your show, and what you're trying to achieve, and thanks for inviting me to be part of it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Like I said, it doesn't exist without people like you willing to tell your story. So this is great. I appreciate it.
by all means. Thank you.
All right.